The heavy doors of the private wing at the royal residence closed with a sound that echoed like a final warning. Inside, the atmosphere was already tense, thick with unspoken disagreements, careful etiquette, and the kind of silence that only exists when power is being quietly contested behind polished walls. Staff moved quickly but quietly through the corridors, avoiding eye contact, as if even a glance might pull them into something they were not allowed to witness. The day had begun like any other royal engagement: schedules, meetings, brief smiles for the cameras. But something had shifted after lunch. Princess Catherine stood near the long oak table in the private briefing room, reviewing documents with calm precision. Her posture was steady, her expression composed, but those who knew her well could sense the subtle tension in her jaw. She had been here before, situations where diplomacy mattered more than emotion. King Charles sat at the head of the table, unusually quiet, observing rather than intervening. Prince William stood near the window, arms folded, staring out into the gray gardens as if searching for clarity in the distance. And then there was Queen Camilla. She entered the room without announcement, her presence immediately changing the temperature of the space. Conversations that had been ongoing stopped mid-sentence. A few staff members straightened instinctively. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she approached the table. Still going over those same proposals? Camilla's voice cut through the room, light in tone but sharp in meaning. Catherine looked up calmly. They're important adjustments for the foundation work. We want to ensure everything is aligned before approval. Camilla gave a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. Of course. Alignment. That seems to be the word of the week. A few staff exchanged uncomfortable glances. The tension was subtle but unmistakable now, like a wire being slowly tightened. William turned from the window. If there's an issue with the proposals, it should be addressed constructively. Camilla's gaze shifted toward him briefly. Constructively is exactly what I intend, William. She stepped closer to the table, her fingers lightly brushing over one of the documents Catherine had been reviewing. Then, without asking, she picked it up. This section here, Camilla said, tapping the page, suggests restructuring decisions that were already discussed and, frankly, agreed upon. Catherine remained composed. Agreed upon in principle, yes. But implementation details still needed clarification. Camilla tilted her head slightly. Or perhaps reinterpretation. The word hung in the air longer than it should have. King Charles finally spoke, his tone measured. Let's not turn this into a debate. We can review it together. But Camilla didn't step back. Instead, she placed the document down more firmly than necessary. You know, she said, glancing at Catherine, sometimes enthusiasm can be mistaken for overreach. The room went still. A staff member near the door lowered their gaze immediately. William's posture shifted, subtle at first, but noticeable to anyone paying attention. Catherine finally responded, her voice steady but firm. My intention has never been overreach. It has always been service. Camilla let out a small, controlled laugh. Service. Yes, that word gets used quite often when ambition is involved. That was the moment the air changed. William stepped forward from the window. That's enough. His voice was calm, but there was an edge beneath it now, something restrained, but straining. Camilla turned slightly toward him. Enough of what, exactly? William looked between Camilla and Catherine, then at the staff in the room. His expression tightened. This tone, this constant undermining. It's unnecessary. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Even the distant ticking of the wall clock seemed louder. Camilla placed both hands on the table. I am expressing concerns that clearly others are reluctant to voice. Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in controlled awareness. Concerns should be raised through proper channels, not in front of staff in a way that creates division. Camilla's smile faded. Division, she repeated softly. Interesting choice of word. William took another step forward. This is not a public debate. We are not doing this here. But Camilla did not move back. Instead, she turned her full attention to Catherine. You've been very effective lately at positioning yourself at the center of things, she said. Some might even say too effective. The room felt colder. A staff member shifted their weight nervously near the door. Catherine closed the folder in front of her slowly. If there are concerns about roles or responsibilities, I am open to discussing them privately and appropriately. Camilla's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer than comfortable. Oh, I'm sure you are, she said. William's patience, already strained, finally cracked in tone if not action. Camilla, stop. The way he said it made everyone in the room go still again. Even King Charles lifted his gaze, more sharply now. Camilla turned toward William, studying him as if measuring how far she could push the moment. You're defending her quite strongly today, she said quietly. Not that anyone is surprised. William's jaw tightened. This isn't about sides, he replied. It's about respect. A brief silence followed. Then Camilla leaned slightly forward, her voice lowering just enough that only those nearby could fully catch it. Respect is earned in time, she said. Not assumed through proximity. That was the point where Catherine finally stood up straight, fully composed, her presence calm but unmistakably firm. I have no interest in conflict, she said, but I will not be spoken about as though I am not in the room. The staff in the background seemed to collectively hold their breath. William's hands clenched briefly at his sides, and Camilla, still unflinching, looked between them all, as if she had already decided how the rest of the afternoon would unfold. But what no one expected was the sudden shift in William's restraint. Because in the next moment, his voice rose, not into chaos, but into something controlled, powerful, and unmistakably final. And everything in the room changed. The silence after William's last words was heavier than anything said before it. He stepped forward, placing himself between Camilla and Catherine, not aggressively, but deliberately, like a barrier drawn in a moment no one could undo. This ends here, William said firmly. Right now. Camilla held his gaze, unblinking. You're making this personal. It became personal the moment respect left this room, William replied. Catherine's expression softened slightly, but she didn't sit back down. She remained steady, composed, refusing to be reduced by the tension swirling around her. King Charles finally rose from his chair. Enough, he said, his voice low but absolute. All of you. The staff immediately straightened, frozen in place. William exhaled slowly, still tense but controlled. Camilla looked away first, just briefly, before stepping back from the table. The moment broke, but the fracture remained. And everyone in the room understood. Nothing would be the same again.